And that's it. It looks like that we are live. Hey guys, and welcome to today's live video. Today I'm actually coming to you from sunny San Diego, and we're going to be talking about how to sell on Amazon as a beginner with private labeling and the FBA program. Now, if you are watching this live, then please do ask questions in the chat box because we will be answering them later on. Now, I just want to say that I really wanted to make this video because something that I have noticed is that there's quite a lot of information out there on how to select good products to sell on Amazon, but there is not a ton of information out there on the other parts of the business, like how to manufacture and ship products. And as a result of this, I've found that it's led a lot of beginners to shy away from private labeling and sell on Amazon because they find the other parts to be intimidating and scary and confusing. Because you see, when it comes to private labeling and selling on Amazon, there are really 4 steps, you could say, or 4 phases to the business that you really need to know about. So, of course, step 1 is the product research phase, where you choose which product you want to manufacture and sell on Amazon. Now, for beginners, you will probably likely want to focus upon products that have a high buyer demand but relatively low seller competition. Step 2 is when you select a supplier and get them to manufacture the products. Step 3 is shipping, and most beginners are going to, probably choose to work with Chinese manufacturers here to help them with this. Now, of course, the downside to Chinese suppliers is that you need to get the items shipped from China to the Amazon FBA warehouse, and for most of you, you'll probably be sending the products into the USA Amazon warehouses. And of course, step 4 is when you create your product listing on Amazon and get sales for it. And this is very important, of course, because without sales, you won't make any money. So let's just jump straight into this now and bring some clarity to each of these 4 steps. To help me, I've got my good friend, Greg Mercer, who is an even more experienced Amazon seller than me. Greg is the founder of Jungle Scout, and he's also a multi-million-dollar seller himself, building his own $400,000 a month Amazon business. So then, welcome, Greg. It's fantastic to have you back on this channel again today. So let's start out by talking about step 1, the product research phase. As I said earlier, I think that there's a lot of information out there already on choosing the best products, but I know that you've got a lot of insight on this question, so I'd love it if you could help us. So could you give our viewers any beginner-specific tips on what sort of products they should be looking for, and perhaps more importantly, what products that they should be avoiding? Greg. Oh no. Greg.
Hey, Sarah.
Oh, I just asked you, Greg. Can you hear anything, Greg?
I can hear you now. I think before you're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted in Zoom. Oh.
Okay.
So Greg, do you have any beginner specific tips for our viewers? Sorry, guys.
Yes.
This is what happens when everything's live.
Okay, so I have a few tips for beginners when you're choosing a product, okay? And apologize for the little technical difficulty there, but there's a few different guidelines I think all beginners should follow, okay? So real quick, you want to find products that have high demand, low competition, low seasonality, good margins, of course, because you want to make money on this, no legal issues, and ideally products that need improvements. Let me go into a few of those a little bit deeper real quickly. So specifically, products that already have existing high demand on Amazon. All right. This is very important. And a lot of people will, they'll try to sell things that they think might be selling well, but with tools like Jungle Scout and the technology that available to Amazon sellers now, you can actually see how well products are already selling on Amazon. So instead of trying to guess what there might be demand for, we can verify that. Okay. As far as competition goes, of course, there's lots of products on Amazon that are in high demand, but how do you know how competitive they are? The easiest way to gauge it is going to be through the number of reviews that are on listings. So listings that have a lower number of reviews are going to be less competitive. They're not as seasoned. They haven't been on Amazon as long, and they don't have as much social proof to be capturing those sales, like from your competitors. Okay. The last one that I mentioned, products that need improvement. I think this is a really important thing now on Amazon. And what I mean when I say that products that need improvement, if you can find products that are selling well, but have a low review score, so like 3 out of 5 reviews, those types of products, it shows to you that there's a lot of demand for them, even though they're of fairly low quality. Then what you can do is you can find the bad reviews on those products. You can read those reviews, okay? And then you can figure out what to improve. So those would be my main tips for choosing a product as a beginner.
Cool. Yeah. No. I think it's definitely really important as a beginner. Like it's to make things as easy for yourself as possible. Like in my recent Jungle Scout tutorial video, as I said, like there's nothing wrong with like picking products that are more complicated, such as clothing that requires you to make multiple different sizes. But as a beginner, it's usually best to stay away from products like that because it adds another layer of complication. So sticking to simpler products is definitely better, and then you can tackle the harder ones down the track. So let's move on to the second phase of the Amazon private labeling business, and that is manufacturing. Can you describe for our viewers here the timeline and process for manufacturing? I think that this will bring a lot of clarity to beginners, like what happens along the way from when you first contact a manufacturer until they ship out your products.
Yeah, really good question. So as far as the timeline goes, it's about 4 to 5 weeks from the day that you put down your deposit until it's shipped. Okay. So this is an important thing to understand because, these are factories, right? There's production lines here, and they manufacture your product, like per your guidelines and for your specific order. Okay. So it's not like they already have 1,000 extra units sitting around. You're going to purchase them and they're just going to ship them straight to you. All right. So plan on around 4 to 5 weeks for that production run. All right. To give you a little more clarity about like how the whole process works, what happens, like, from when you talk to them and everything else. How it works, you'll reach out to a number of different suppliers, right? You'll find one that's a right fit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And after you do that, you'll find one that's the right fit. You typically have to put down a 30% or 50% deposit. That's going to be the deposit you give them so they can buy the raw materials, and so you show them that you're serious, okay? In between along the way, there'll be communication with them. You can ask them to send you pictures of kind of like the process or the product being manufactured. And yeah, then after 4 or 5 weeks, they'll ship it out to you.
Cool. Yeah, no, thank you. I think that it should hopefully make things like a lot clearer for those out there who were a bit confused about the whole manufacturing process and the timeline involved. So here's a question for you again, Greg. Like, can small first-time Amazon merchants still connect with these suppliers? Will they work with them? And can you give some tips on successfully reaching out to them?
Yeah. So yes, absolutely. As far as like, there probably are more sellers like on Amazon now, but as far as like finding suppliers, that's definitely not like more competitive or anything like it used to be. So small time merchants or first time merchants can definitely find manufacturers. I have a few tips for you there though. So one is, so I've been to China a few times and it's been a fantastic experience. You get to learn a lot. And when you go there, you realize like some factories are huge, right? The production lines have like 1,000 people working on them, or I don't know, like hundreds of people, right? It's tons of people, like huge factories, so very big. These are going to be the types of factories that are not a good fit for a small like FBA seller, right? Like these people are working with like Home Depot and Lowe's and Walmart and whoever else, and they don't want your order for 500 units. But then when you also realize is other factories are small. There's like a dozen people working there. They have like 2 machines and it's like a little bit more like laborious, like labor or whatever. But these are the types of factories that love clients that order like 500 units or 1,000 units. These are the people that are used to working with smaller sellers, okay? So a big part of this is finding the factory that's a good fit for you. And oftentimes you don't even realize this until you start reaching out to them. Okay. So, what I would recommend is to, just put together a template email of like what you're looking for, the specifications, how many units you want to order, and ask them for a price. And then send that out to like every factory that you can find on Alibaba. And what you'll find is, like half of them don't even respond for whatever reason. That's fine, because you'll reach out to like 10 or 20 of them. So let's say you reach out to 10 of them, half of them don't respond, 5 of them do respond. Of those, you'll usually find that like 2 of them will say like, hey, you have to order at least like 3,000 units. And it's like, well, that's too many for me. And then there'll be like a couple others you usually find that are like, okay, yeah, I'm happy to do a production run of 500 units. I'm happy to work with you. Let's talk about this. Like, I'm willing to kind of hold your hand through the process. So those are the factories that are going to be like a good fit for you. So it's just as much about, it's kind of like very much like a mutual fit, when the factory that's right for you and your size seller will be very nice for you to work with as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. Like, you guys can definitely find manufacturers that will work with you. All right, so let's move on to phase 3, which is shipping the products that you've manufactured into the Amazon FBA warehouses. I think beginners find this step the most intimidating from my experience. So Greg, can you help calm their fears and explain to people watching this video and give them some clarity around this? Can you walk us through the shipping process, what happens between the product leaving the manufacturer until it arrives in the Amazon FBA warehouse?
Yeah, good question. You're right. This is like scares a lot of people, and it doesn't need to be scary. It's actually not that scary. So there's 2 types to ship. There's 2 ways to type, 2 ways to ship goods like from China or anywhere overseas, like to these FBA warehouses. All right. It's going to be air shipping or sea shipping. All right. Now with air shipping, there's 2 more types. One's like your air courier, and these are going to be like DHL, FedEx, UPS, TNT. These are the companies that provide like door-to-door service. They handle all the customs for you, and it's no different than just like shipping something DHL, like in your country or whatever. It's very easy to do. All right. This is also going to be the most expensive, but it's going to be the fastest. So items that are like small and lightweight, you might just want to do this because it's still not that expensive, since these are just like small, lightweight products anyway. And it's so easy for you to do. All right. So that's like one type. Another type is air cargo. This still gets put on a plane, but the process is a little bit different. You still have to hire like a customs agent to like get it through customs for you. It's a little bit more involved as far like it's more similar to like sea shipping. There's not as many use cases for this. I'd say like a use case for this would be if your product's like bigger and heavier, so it's too expensive for air courier, but you need it in like 10 days, you're not willing to wait like a month, then that's when this like they usually call it air cargo is an option. All right. What's going to be the most popular for bigger orders or for larger, heavier items is shipping ocean freight. Okay. And I think this is what like scares the most people, because they're like, I want to ship ocean freight because I want the cost savings, but this is like a scary thing because I'm hearing about customs and duties and all these different forms and whatever else. So like, I'm scared about this. And the truth is, you don't need to be scared. All right. What it comes down to is you have to hire a freight forwarder. It's impossible to do this without a freight forwarder. So what you do is you hire a freight forwarder and they walk you through the process. Like this is their job. Their job is to like ship freight, like from China to the US and handle it away. Okay. So they handle like, interact with the government agency. They handle with like booking a vessel. They handle loading your goods into a container. Like they handle all this stuff. I think like most people who are really scared by this, they read up a whole bunch about like ocean freight and it seems really scary. But the truth is like you just hire a freight forwarder and they do all this for you. Okay. So what I personally do is I personally use a freight forwarder. I use one called Flexport, but it doesn't matter. You can use anyone that you want. And, I tell my freight forwarder, hey, my goods, let's use my marshmallow sticks. My marshmallow sticks are going to be ready in a week from now. I ordered FOB, so my factory delivers them to the port. I tell my freight forwarder that. So I say, hey, freight forwarder, they're going to be at the port on this day. And this is the address of the FBA warehouse I need them shipped to. Okay. So what my freight forwarder does then is they put them on a boat, typically that leaves from like Shenzhen or Hong Kong in China. They take the boat, goes all the way to LA. They're unloaded in LA. They're put on a truck in LA, and then they're shipped to the FBA warehouse, and then they're unloaded at the FBA warehouse, and then they're available for sale. Okay. So that seems like intimidating, but the truth is, like, I just pay the freight forwarder. They handle all this stuff. And then, like, a month later, if you do ocean freight, that's when it arrives at the FBA warehouse. So hopefully that gives you a little more insight into how that works.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate your honest and clear response there, because I know that there's so many questions for beginners on this. Something I also think that's important to cover in this video is the Amazon FBA prep requirements. So now, for those of you that don't know, when you send products into an Amazon FBA warehouse, they need to be prepped in a certain way before Amazon will accept them, and Amazon outlines these requirements very clearly on its website. So, for example, if you're sending in case-packed products, one of Amazon's requirements is that you can only have a maximum of 150 units per case. So, Greg, can you tell the people that are watching this video, how do you prep your products before you import them into the country? How do you work with the Chinese manufacturers to get that done?
Yeah, really good question. Okay. So, and you brought up a great point there that you want the Chinese factory to do all the prep for you. Okay. Like, some people are like, oh, I'll put on the labels when I'll ship them to my house and do that. It's like, that's a lot of work. And like, the factory will put labels on your product for you for free. Like, don't do it yourself. Just have them do it. Like, they usually charge you a very small amount or free. Okay. But here are a few things that you need to understand. One, any product that goes to Amazon, it needs to have an FNSKU on it, okay? And this is a barcode that you can download from Amazon. You can pay Amazon to put this on for you, but just get this barcode called the FNSKU. You download it out of Seller Central and put that on your packaging, or put that on a label and have the factory put it on there, okay? So that's the most important thing, is anything that is sold on Amazon at some point has to have this FNSKU barcode put on it. So just have the factory do it. That's one important thing. Now, you brought up like an example of some like the prep guidelines there, and there's a whole bunch of them on the Amazon website that you can go to and you can look at. However, I know the most common ones, and I know the ones that people usually screw up the most. Okay. So the most important thing is that FNSKU label on there. Okay. The other one that often gets messed up is if your product is like a textile, so it's like a piece of clothing or a blanket or like anything else, it needs to be in a plastic bag, and the plastic bag needs to have a suffocation warning on it. The suffocation warning it says, like, do not let your kids play in this bag because they may suffocate themselves and they may die. It says something like that. You can like find the text on the internet, but that's essentially the gist of it. Okay. So if it's a textile, it needs to be in that bag. If it's a child's product, it needs to be in the bag. So just imagine like a toy dump truck that a kid plays with. Like, if you see these in like a toy store, it's typically like the box is only like covers half the toy, because they want the kids to see it. Well, in Amazon's warehouse, that needs to be in the plastic bag. So that's one that often gets messed up. And if your product, like, if I'm just to generalize all of the rest of them, if your product's easily breakable, it needs to like be able to withstand a drop. So this means if it's glass, it needs to have like bubble wrap around it. If it's in like a flimsy box that if dropped would split open, then it needs to have like another box around it, or tape over the lid, or like something else. And the only other thing is, like, you have to keep in mind that the warehouses are probably not climate controlled. So it can get hot and very cold in there. It can have high humidity and dust. So if you think any of those things would affect your product, you need to keep that in mind. Either put a plastic bag around them with the suffocation warning, or just be mindful of, how you're going to get around that.
Cool. Awesome. No, thank you. So actually, this is we're going longer than I thought. So I'll quickly move on to the final step in this and ask you one final question before we take questions from the audience, Greg. And that is, so something that I think some of my subscribers at Wholesale TED may have already known already is that Greg is a master at creating really high converting Amazon product listings, and this here is Jungle Sticks. And so he's amazing at creating product listings that make you go, wow, I really want to buy that. This was definitely one of the best I've ever seen. So could you give our viewers some tips here on how to create high converting product listings like yours, so that when customers come to their listings, they will choose theirs over their competitors, even if they have less reviews in the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few things that are to set your listings apart. Like, one, no one cares about the text. Everyone cares about the pictures. So like everything you want your customers to know needs to be in the pictures. All right. So like if anything is very special about your particular listing, you want to call that out in the picture. So like in your pictures, you can have like little designs on top of that. It's like a little arrow with a little bubble or whatever else. Or like one of the things about the bamboo sticks, is like they're 3 feet long. They're very tall. Most people don't understand that when they're looking at like bamboo skewers. So like we put it up next to like a person standing there. We also have like a kid holding one, so you can see how big the size is. Okay. So that's one important thing to like call that out. Lifestyle images work very well. And what I mean by that are people actually using your product. So, like my baby towels, I have like really cute, like really happy babies, like in these baby towels. It makes it look like, okay, you can understand then the size of it. Like it makes you feel good because it's like, oh, this little baby's so happy and looks like snuggly in this towel. So those are really good. Something else I really like to do that's actually not in the bamboo stick listing is create like a competitive matrix. Again, calling out like what features about your particular product are better than some of your competitors. So those are a few of the things that can make your listing stand out.
Nice. Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you. Because something that people may not realize if they're watching this video is that sales are extremely important for the Amazon algorithm. And it's something I talked about in my video, how to launch your first Amazon FBA product. And another important part about sales is Amazon looks to see which listings are converting highly. And if your listing is converting highly, then they see that as a really great sign, and it will help increase your position in the Amazon algorithm. So it's very, very important for making sales to have a high converting listing. All right, so I think we've reached the Q&A session with the live chat. So one question I saw in the chat was people asking, should they go anywhere else other than Alibaba when they're first looking for their supplier? What do you reckon, Greg? Do you think beginners should just stick to Alibaba?
Yeah, I would just stick to Alibaba. It's still the best. It's like the 800-pound gorilla. It has the most factories on it. There are other websites, but especially when you're just starting out, just stay focused on Alibaba.
Cool, nice. Someone asked here, what is the most common mistake that you see beginners make? There's probably quite a few, but if you had to pick one or a few.
The most common one is actually trying to sell things that don't have demand on Amazon. So people will say like, my mom was looking for this product and she couldn't find it on Amazon, so you should sell it because I know it's going to do well. And it's like, well, the reason that product's not on Amazon is probably because like no one else is looking for it. Like, sorry to burst your bubble, but that's just like the truth. So instead, like just sell products that you are already being purchased on Amazon. That way people are going to Amazon, they're searching for this and they're buying it. That's like the most common mistake.
Yeah, definitely. Listen to the data. I've had this with so many people. And also when the data tells you a product is really good, but you yourself don't like the product and you think like, oh, who would even want to buy that? Well, it's not about you, it's about the customers. So listen to the data. So I saw a couple of questions in there about UPC codes. I know that UPC codes scare a lot of beginners. So how does that work with FBA products, Greg?
Yeah. So, all right. So UPC codes, what it comes down to is all you need the UPC code for is to just create your listing. So Amazon requires you to have a UPC code or EAN code to create your listing. After that, you don't even need it because you get that FNSKU barcode, and that's what you're actually going to put on your packaging. Okay. So there's two ways to get UPC or EAN. They're essentially more or less the same thing. They serve the same purpose. You can buy them straight from the source, which is called GS1. I think the website's gs1.org, but you can just Google it. GS1 is the government authority of who actually creates UPC codes. Okay, so that's straight from the source, and that's what Amazon wants you to do. I think if you actually read all their terms of service, it says it has to be from there. Now, The downside of that is it is the most expensive, and resellers sell them for like much cheaper. So I think from GS1 they're like 100 or 200 bucks if you only buy one, whereas resellers sell them for like $1 or $2 or $5. So most Amazon sellers buy them from resellers. Like one of the popular resellers is called like speedybarcodes.com, but there's a whole bunch. You can just search like UPC codes. Be warned though, if you purchase from a reseller, you are taking a little bit of a risk because Amazon says that they want the GS1 codes. However, I haven't heard about, occasionally there's like rumors going around that Amazon's cracking down on this. However, last time I checked, I was still able to create a listing from a UPC code I bought from a reseller. So there's the skinny.
Yeah, actually, guys, I've got a full video on this subject. I definitely know people that have experienced this happen to them, where their listing was taken down because of a duplicate UPC code. Amazon doesn't mind if you purchase a UPC code from a reseller. What they care about is if it's a duplicate code that someone else is using. It needs to be unique. And in the past, I don't know how Amazon didn't pick it up, but they weren't as good at picking up duplicates. So yeah, you can definitely use a UPC code that you purchase from a reseller. So a good question I saw in the chat box was, should you get your products inspected by a third party when you're first starting out before you get them shipped to the Amazon FBA warehouse? I'm sure a lot of people who are beginning are afraid of losing their investment to poor product quality control.
Good question. So like my first 2 years selling on Amazon, I never got a single inspection done, and I didn't have like any major horror stories. There was like small things here and there or whatever, but like none of them were that big of a deal. Nowadays, I do pretty much get all my shipments inspected, but it's not required. And what it comes down to is, are you willing to accept the risk? Okay. So understand that like an inspection costs about 200 bucks. Okay. So if I'm ordering like $1,000 worth of items, like, do I want to add 20% of cost to those? I don't know. Like if it was a relatively simple product, I'd probably rather just accept the risk of it not turning out of what I expected. Okay. If I'm placing a big order, like a $10,000 order, $20,000 order, something, really big, then it's like, okay, I'm just going to pay for the 200 bucks to make sure I'm getting exactly what I want. There is a way to do, I call it a poor man's inspection. And I do this on all my products, whether I'm getting an inspection or not, is I ask my sales rep to take a whole bunch of pictures of the product, like when it's being manufactured, the raw materials, when it's being packaged up, when it's in the container. And that way you can probably figure out like 90% of problems just from those pictures. You'd be like, whoa, my logo is upside down. Like, wait, you need to fix that. So that's something you can do, and it doesn't cost you any money. But if you're a very risk adverse person or it's a larger order, then you may just want to pay the 200 bucks and get the inspection done.
Yeah, I definitely think that a lot of beginners, they worry far too much in the beginning. You don't need to go through all that. It's helpful, obviously if you can, but if you're on a low budget, I wouldn't let that stop you if you can't afford to do that from getting started. So something I saw in the chat box there was people asking what sort of price point they should be looking at when they're selling on Amazon. And I think this is actually a really important thing to know. But what do you think, Greg? Like, what sort of price should be at the minimum price point that somebody should be listing their item usually if they want to be making a good profit margin?
Yeah, actually, I should have mentioned this earlier when I was talking about the tips, but I prefer I don't want to sell anything less than let's say $18, maybe 15, but probably 18 or 20 or more. With Amazon FBA, there are some fixed flat fees, like the pick and pack fees, like $2 or whatever it is. Right. So if you're selling these very inexpensive items, there's just not a lot of money left over for you to make a profit. And if you're only making a dollar profit per item, you just have to sell so many units for that to really add up. Right. So, at the $18 or $20 range, that's usually when your profit's $5 a pop or $6 or something. And it's okay, if I'm making $6 profit a unit, I only have to sell 10 or 15 a day instead of 50 to make good money. So that's what I prefer, $18 or more, maybe $20 or more.
Cool. Nice. All right. Okay. We'll do just one question because we're about to hit time. So somebody asked about, do you need to have an LLC to start selling on Amazon?
If you're from the US Amazon will let you sign up for a US seller's account with just your like social security number. So to answer the question, no, you don't have to have the LLC. If you are trying to sell in Amazon.com internationally, I believe you do have to have a legal entity like an LLC or something similar. One other thing to note is even if you don't have to have one, you may want to consider it because it does, having a legal entity protection gives you some like liability protection. So it's something to think about anyway. But I know a lot of brand new beginners, especially if they live in the US and they're selling on the .com store, they just start without a legal entity like an LLC.
I mean, there could have been some changes, but I don't think that you need an LLC anymore, or at least you didn't in the past, to sell internationally. But I will look
Oh,
into
cool.
that. I will
Right
look
on.
into that. Because
Okay.
like the thing with Amazon always is that if you get in early, you get grandfathered in to most things.
Yeah.
That's why it's always good to start selling like ASAP, because
Good point.
yeah, you guys, you don't want to wait around. That is it. It looks like we've hit our time limit definitely for this video. Thank you everyone for that joined us live, and of course thank you Greg for coming on and answering questions. I can see through the chat box that lots of people found this really helpful. And if you did find this video really helpful, we really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribe to us here at Wholesale Ted for more videos about selling online. And if you didn't watch this video live, but you have your own questions that were unanswered here, then please leave them in the comments section. We do get a lot of questions, but we will try to answer as many as we can. And of course, before you all run away, I've got one last freebie I'd like to offer you. Here at Wholesale Ted, we have a free ebook, How to Make $10,000 a Month Online with Dropshipping. And if you would like to get that free ebook for yourself, simply click on the link in the video description below. All right, so I will stop